I wake up every morning and within about 30 seconds, it's just there. Not like a wave, not dramatic, just like a background hum, like a quiet realization that I don't have anybody to call, nobody to meet up with, nobody who's going to text me something that actually means something. And, it's not sadness, it's just the weather now. It's just what Tuesday feels like. And I'm 22 and I'm telling you that right now because the world has a very specific script on what a lonely 22-year-old man is supposed to be. He's awkward, he's antisocial, he doesn't try hard enough. He needs to put himself out there, join a club, download an app, find his tribe, and that's the script. And the loneliness I'm talking about isn't the kind where you don't know people. I know people. I've been in group chats, I've sat at tables, I've been in rooms full of guys my age where everyone's laughing and talking, and I'm right there with them, and I've never felt more alone in my life because nothing that comes out of anyone's mouth goes deeper than the surface ever. It's like everyone agreed to stay shallow, and I didn't understand the memo. And I'll share a hobby with someone, we both like, or we both watch like the same YouTube channel, or we play the same game, cool. That's the entry point, but it never goes past the threshold. The whole relationship lives and dies right there in the lobby, and we never get to anything real. And the one time I do bring something with weight to it, a book I read, an idea that's been sitting in my head, something I'm actually building. It basically just gets brushed off like I said something embarrassing, like I broke an unspoken rule, like death itself is a social violation. And you feel it immediately, that little shift, the energy in the room that's telling you to dial it back, be normal, talk about something easy. So you learn to stop bringing it up. You learn to edit yourself in real time, shrink the version of you that shows up so it fits into a space that was never built for the full version. And that's not connection, that's just performance. And I'd sit in those rooms feel the ceiling of it. Everything was designed to stay comfortable. Dodge anything that requires something from you. Avoid the silence that comes from when the screens turn off and you have to sit with yourself. Numb out, stay comfortable, repeat. And I'd get why, comfort is easy, but I'd sit there and feel the walls closing in and think, this is it. This is what we're doing. And growth asks something, it asks something from you every single day, and it gives you nothing back for a long time. And I understand the trade, but understanding it doesn't mean I can participate in it. I can't sit in a room and pretend that the conversation about nothing fills me up. I can't pretend I don't notice that everyone around me is sleepwalking. I tried for years. I tried and it doesn't take. So here's where it gets really honest. That advice, it doesn't work. Put yourself out there. Where? Find your tribe. How? Just be yourself and the right people will show up. That sounds like something someone writes on a poster in a guidance counselor's office. That's not strategy for a 22-year-old man who feels like he woke up in a world that chose to go numb and is now being told the issue is that he didn't try hard enough to enjoy the numbness. And that advice, the people the people are out there and you just haven't bumped into them yet. But what if the real problem is that most people your age aren't available for genuine connection because they've been anesthetized by a culture that rewards shallow everything? What if the loneliness isn't a failure of effort? What if it's the natural result of refusing to lower your standard for what a real conversation is? What if a real friendship is what it actually means to know someone, to be known by them? And sometimes I sit in my car, sometimes after a workout or something, engine off, no music, just sitting there. And I could text someone. I have numbers on my phone. I could make a plan somewhere to go somewhere, fill the time. But I already know what it's going to be. I already know that we'll talk about nothing. I already know I'll drive home feeling emptier than when I left. So I just sit there, and people would look at me and say that that's the problem. You're isolating. You're withdrawing. You need to get out more. No, I got out. I've been out. Out is where I learned that most of this is just theater. And here's what nobody lets young men say. Sometimes the loneliness isn't because you can't find people. It's because what the people around you value genuinely repulses you. Not in a judgmental way, in a visceral way, in a way that you feel in your chest when someone your age tells you that their biggest ambition this week is in a video game rank or a body count. And you're not angry at them, you're just aware in that very moment that you're standing on a completely different floor of the building, and there's just no staircase in between you or between you. And that awareness, it is isolating, but it's not a defect. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that the loneliness gets better. I'm not going to give you 5 steps to build a social circle. I don't have a tribe. I don't have a brotherhood. Uh, but I do have a gym bag and a stack of books and a lot of mornings that start with silence and the low hum of knowing that basically everything that I'm doing is by myself. But I'd rather have a room full where I'd rather have that than a full room where I have to leave pieces of myself at the door just to be allowed in. And the uncomfortable part is that I think about late at night when there's nothing to distract me, is that I might be choosing this, not the loneliness itself, but the standard that makes it basically inevitable. I could lower it. I could laugh at the jokes that aren't funny. I could stop mentioning the books. I could game for 6 hours and call that hanging out. I could make it so much more easier on myself. And every single morning, I wake up and I don't, and nobody's coming to tell me whether that's strength or a slower kind of suffering. And that's the part you have to just sit with, the not knowing which one it is and choosing it anyways.